In this video, I'm going to give you 10 tips to help you hit Unreal faster. To start it out, let me tell you a little bit about the format of ranked. We'll call this tip number 0. This is what you need to know. Off-spawn kills give very little rank. Mid-game kills give you a little bit more, and end-game kills give you the most. This means that surviving consistently off-spawn is really important to ranking up. The other thing is, the higher rank the player is, the more points you get, and of course, the more people you outplace, the more rank you get. Now let's get into tip number 1, which is talking about the best loot in the game. When it comes to shotguns, you should always carry a pump unless there's a purple or gold tack. Me personally, I'll still take a purple and gold pump over a tack any day, but I'll take one of those tacks if I have a gray to blue pump. The reason I would ever take a tack is because purple and gold tacks actually two-shot wood builds. They do the same damage to walls as pickaxes, which is pretty useful for pressuring. When it comes to spray gun, I'm personally always carrying an assault rifle. No bursts, no pistols, and usually not an SMG. But of course, I'll take the mythic drum gun if I get that option. Then I always carry 2 sets of heals, big pots and minis primarily. Then finally, for the third slot, you can carry whatever. I usually stick with movement items, but C4, boogies, RPGs, and snipers are all crazy as well. If you have a car, you low-key don't even need a grappler, but I like using a grappler in fights because you can do that trick where you shoot the grapple and immediately pull out your shotgun by pressing the 2 buttons at the same time. That makes the grappler useful in build fights and good for movement, so double whammy. Now for tips numbers 2 through 5, I'm going to be talking about fighting tips. The fact is, you're going to hit Unreal faster if you can win your fights. I might make an OG fighting tutorial because it's very different from previous seasons, but for now, I'm going to give you a few tips to help you out. So tip number 2, you need to play fast, but also very patient in fights in this season. Unlike previous seasons, this season is very important to fight optimally. What that means is taking really good peek shots and never exposing yourself to a free pump. There's no spam guns, so you really can't spray against somebody's wall to get in their box really quickly and end a fight fast, other than the drum gun. But even with that gun, if you spray into someone's box, they can just max pump you so easily. The OG pump shotguns hit like a truck. You don't have to have the best aim to hit a max pump. So that's why I say play very patient and mindful in your fights. Always think about taking the best possible peek. When I say play fast but patient, what I mean is your brain needs to be moving at the speed of light. You know, you have to be moving fast to keep up with their piece control and everything, and to not miss the opportunities to take the peek shots. But when I say patient is don't rush those peek shots, because if you rush it, you're gonna get 185 pumped. It's just over. It's a big learning curve from last season because we would just jump in boxes with gatekeepers and spray into people's boxes with striker ARs, but we can't do that anymore, so it's time to retrain our brain to play optimally. Tip number 3 is when you're weak in a fight, don't run away. The last thing you want to do is catch yourself grappling away or just running and building away. You're just gonna waste your materials or just get shot out of the sky. The only time you could run away is if you use a car and glitch it and like fly across the map. But what you need to do when you get weak, if you don't have that option, look for counter damage. Like I said, you know, there's really no crazy spam guns this season, so that means people can't just spray and kill you through your walls. You could set up a nice peek and counter somebody who's jumping into your box. People have done it to me so much this season. I'll hit someone with a 185 pump and I'm like, oh, I just gotta spray and get in their box. But then they just counter damage me for 185 back and all of a sudden I lose the fight. So when you get weak, don't panic, just look for counter damage. Of course, try to get your heals off, but number 1 priority is counter damage. Tip number 4 is protect your angles in a fight. I don't know what it is about this season, but there are so many third parties. I'll show up in a fight and then 5 seconds later, there'll be like 6 people there, probably because of these glitched cars at the moment. But this just means when you're pressuring somebody's wall, when you're in a box fight, build off all your angles so that you don't get surprise grappled on, beamed from the side, or anything like that. But speaking of third parties, tip number 5 is the key to avoid third parties and make more endgames is don't rotate to the center of the zone. Try to keep yourself rotating towards the outskirts of the map. You're not gonna find as many fights doing this, which I know can be boring. If you're a lower rank and you're like destroying everyone in the fights, by all means, rotate to the center and go crazy. But me personally, I'm in elite lobbies right now on day 3 of the season, and everyone I fight is insane. And I know if I rotate to the center of the map to the hot side of zone, there's going to be a bunch of third parties, and I'm just being realistic. The odds of me winning that fight with like 4 third parties showing up as well is very slim. Versus you could play the dead side of zone and you'll just find one random person on that dead side of zone as well, and you'll have a normal 1v1 fight. It's a lot easier to survive those types of fights. Additionally, you'll also probably find less good players on the outskirts of the map. Most of the good players land hot. They'll go to the center of the map, go to Lazy Lake or Big POI POIs, dog pound especially, so avoiding those areas can help you survive to endgame more often and win fights easier. Now for tips 6 through 9, I'm going to be giving you some off-spawn advice. Off-spawn this season, low-key is mostly about being patient, managing your mats and stuff like that, but hopefully these next few tips will help you out a little bit. So tip number 6 is landing outside of a hot location and then pushing in can help you survive more often. For example, when I was landing at dog pound, there'd be like 20 people there, and sometimes I don't even get a gun. But if you land outside of that location or at a POI nearby and then push in, you'll guarantee that you at least get guns and will have more of a chance in the fights, versus if you land at those locations, you might get an SMG while the other person gets max shield, a pump, an AR. You know, just landing a little bit quieter and then going to those pop-in areas can help you survive more consistently. Tip number 7 is you obviously need to know how to drop. So just the biggest piece of advice is aim for those low parts on the map. Usually that's going to be water, but for a lot of places, you just have to look at the mountains, look at the landforms, and aim for the low parts of those landforms. If you ever have a really far drop from the location you're planning to go, you don't just want to sit there with your glider out, gliding across the map. That's going to be the slowest way to get there. You mainly want to look as horizontal as possible without it slowing down. If you look too far up, too far horizontal, it's going to slow down. So you want to find that sweet spot right below that. Additionally, if it's too far to do that strategy, start spam pulling out your glider. It actually does make you go faster. And then the last thing about dropping is if you ever do not have the best drop for the location that you're going, just curve to an empty building. Always scout the other people that are dropping at your spot so that you can guarantee you get your own building. Usually I try to claim multiple buildings, so if there's 2 people on the north side and nobody on the south side, I'll actually land in the middle of the location rather than on that empty south side. That way I'm cutting off their loot path, because by claiming that middle building, they won't be able to rotate there. So I'll get that middle building and all the south buildings. The only way I can do this is by scouting really well when I'm landing so that I know where the other people are. Tip number 8 is try to avoid going to the center of a location too early. So let's say there's like 5 people at Holly landing here, 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 and here, and I'm at the south part of Holly. If I immediately push to the center, everybody else is also probably going to push to the center as well. So I'm going to be getting third-partied like crazy, which off-spawn getting third-partied is not fun. Rather, I could kind of farm my mats along the outskirts until I hear other people start to fight and then push to the center. Off-spawn this season is very much about patience. Make sure you have materials, make sure you loot as much as you can before pushing into that fight, and always be mindful of what other people are around so that you don't get third-partied. Tip number 9, the last tip of off-spawn, I've been saying it, be patient off-spawn. Once you actually win off-spawn, don't leave too early. In the past, I would loot like a quarter of my spot off-spawn and then just go and push into a fight. But because there's not that much loot on this map, there's not a lot of shields and stuff, always try to get as many shields as you can before pushing out of there. Remember, the best way to hit Unreal is to play for that endgame. Mid-game fights are fine, but take that time off spawn to upgrade your guns, look for more heals, and really set yourself up for that endgame before you go into mid-game fights. Otherwise, you might just find that by third zone, you're completely shambles, all the loot on the map is taken, and you're screwed. Obviously, this is just advice, and probably more so important in the later lobbies once you get to like Elite and stuff. At least in the lobbies I'm in right now, they are so sweaty, so this is what I've been doing. Elite and Champ lobbies will get easier later on in the season, but right now they're pretty crazy. Now, tip number 10, this one is a little bit deep, but try not to think so much about ranking up. What you should be focusing on while playing rank is focus on improving and focus on enjoying it. If all you care about is getting Unreal, it's going to be harder, and it's going to be more frustrating every time you mess up. But if you just go in with the mentality of trying to get better and trying to enjoy each game, you know, landing at drop spots that get you excited. If playing for the end game is the part that you find fun, do it. Or if you want to hot drop dog pound, screw it. Don't worry about your rank so much. Again, it's kind of counterproductive to the rest of this video, but I know that anytime I take rank too seriously, it's just not fun anymore. So it's kind of the whole point we're playing, right? Now, finally, to end this video, if you guys are kind of new to Fortnite, or maybe you've just started wanting to take Fortnite a bit more seriously, you may have already saw it by now, but I actually recently released a how to build map. It teaches you basically every build move you need in competitive to succeed. All you do is shoot the squares and it'll play video and audio tutorials. There's even a 1v1 room to practice against friends, slow motion options, all kinds of stuff. It's a really good map. Code to that and all my other maps are down below, but I hope this video helps you guys out. I've got more content on the way, so stay tuned and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.